Lucy, the long-awaited netrunner from Night City, has finally arrived in Wuthering Waves 3.4's Edgerunners collaboration, fully equipped with her arsenal of hacks, monowires, and of course, massive damage. Her kit, however, is specially tailored to work alongside her other partner in crime, Rebecca. But don't worry, she's free. But you'll still have to pull for Lucy. As a Spectro, heavy attack damage focused unit with plenty of crowd control, unique hack debuffs, and plenty of built-in crit, she'll work best alongside characters like Rebecca, who can buff heavy attack damage, and generic supports like Shorekeeper, Mornye, and Verena. With that, welcome to our full scope comprehensive guide to Lucy, one of the newest additions to WoWA, and I'm here to break down everything when it comes to how she works, what her best equipment will be, and the steps you need to take across her team building and rotations to make the most out of her insane damage potential. As always, if you're enjoying this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. Lucy, with her baseline kit, focuses on the generation of a resource called TCP to enter an enhanced state that greatly buffs her damage potential and allows her to inflict a massive, and I mean massive, number of debuffs on her target via her enhanced liberation. So naturally, TCP is where we'll begin. Lucy can hold up to 100 points of TCP gained through a variety of attacks. The first is with her normal attacks. Lucy's basic is a 4-hit attack chain that can alternate to a heavy attack by holding the input after her first or third stage. This allows you to chain into her first or second heavy attack. Her heavy attack is a 2-hit chain that can be performed by simply holding down the attack button after each stage, and attacking after the second stage chains into the third hit of her basic attack chain. Her mid-air attack is a simple plunge that chains into her second basic, and her dodge counter damages the enemy, chaining into the fourth stage of her basic or the second stage of her heavy, depending on your input. Another method of generating TCP is through Lucy's baseline resonance skills. Her first cast, Payload, charges at an enemy and inflicts the Hack Shifting debuff. Hack Shifting is a unique state that interacts with Tune Breaks by inflicting damage similarly to Tune Rupture, but it isn't counted as a tune effect for units like Mornye. This damage scales with Tune Break boost and is performed by using a Tune Break when the enemy's off-tune buildup is full. Payload also deals damage over 2 attacks while enabling her follow-up skill, Pulse Interference. If you miss this attack, it'll reduce the cooldown by 70%, but if you're interrupted, you won't get the refund. This can be chained into the second stage of her basic or heavy attack. Pulse Interference, the follow-up skill, damages and stagnates the target and grants Digital Handshake, which causes her to gain TCP every second that expires when TCP is full. This attack can also be followed up with that second stage of her basic. Using an intro skill before this ability will also cause it to grant 20 more points of TCP. This intro also grants Involuntary Sharing, which allows the team to see enemies behind obstacles for 25 seconds. Rebecca and the turret she produces with her outro skill also gains additional effects, with her being able to lock onto targets and her turret dealing more damage. This intro skill can also allow Lucy to advance to the second stage of her basic attack chain. When TCP is filled from those previously mentioned attacks, Lucy gains access to her enhanced skill, Deadlock. This attacks the target, inflicts Hack Shifting, and deals heavy attack damage. This attack also activates Algorithm Compaction, which dramatically changes Lucy's entire moveset. In this state, Lucy gains a 65% spectral damage bonus, a stack of Sequel, and her basic becomes Thread Shredding, a 4-hit attack chain that deals entirely heavy attack damage. Her heavy attack becomes Single Threading, which can chain into a mid-air attack or the second stage of her enhanced basic. The mid-air attack is a simple plunge that can advance to the second stage of her enhanced basic, while her dodge counter can advance to the third. All of these attacks generate a resource called Root Access, and when this is full, Lucy's heavy attack becomes Dual Threading, which consumes all root access and lets Lucy cast multi-threading when she follows up with an attack in the air. This ability deals a respectable amount of heavy attack damage that is enhanced by consuming that stack of Sequel to buff the multiplier by 270%. This attack can be followed up with the second stage of her enhanced basic. If Lucy uses this attack without a stack of Sequel, she loses 20% of her max HP. And when she uses this attack, she greatly buffs her Resonance Liberation, Netrunner. Netrunner, when unbuffed, allows Lucy to hack into an enemy and apply up to 7 spoofing program effects that all cost different amounts of RAM, with 24 possible points to use, while marking all enemies across 20 meters in her field of view. Ping costs 2 RAM and extends Lucy's field of view, while also dealing a small amount of spectral damage to all targets as heavy attack. Cyberware Malfunction costs 4 RAM and causes marked targets to take 5% more damage for 30 seconds, while Breach Protocol also costs 4 RAM and reduces their defense by 5% for 30 seconds. Synapse Burnout costs 5 and deals spectral damage to all marked targets, while Cripple Movement costs 6 and deals hack damage to all marked targets and reduces their attack by 5%. Weapons Glitch also costs 5 RAM and has a chance to nullify enemy weapons for 30 seconds, and Cyber Psychosis, costing 6, converts marked targets to neutral entities and reduces their vibration strength, but this only works on common enemies. That's a lot to choose from. After selecting the spoofing programs used, a normal attack then triggers Override, dealing a massive amount of heavy attack damage. The enhanced version of this attack greatly increases the damage multiplier on Override, nearly doubling the motion value. When you factor in all of Lucy's abilities, resources, and interactions with each other, Lucy has a relatively simple playstyle that involves opening up her team's rotation with her unbuffed Liberation, debuffing all enemies with her status effects, then immediately swapping out to begin the rest of her team's rotation. When she eventually intros back in, she'll double cast her skill to gain a massive amount of TCP, then perform basics until her enhanced skill Deadlock is ready. After using her transformation, she'll follow up with a full enhanced basic chain followed by dual threading and then multi-threading, and then her enhanced Liberation before ending the rotation by outroing to another teammate, granting them a 25% basic attack damage amp for 14 seconds or until they swap out, while also granting the entire team Countermeasure Program for 25 seconds. This grants Resonators other than Lucy who can inflict Hacked Shifting 20% damage amp. This is just Rebecca. If the effect is active and the Resonator swaps, the entire buff ends immediately. Also, whenever a teammate is attacked, they'll have the damage reduced by 30% and the enemy will be stagnated for 1 second. This can trigger once. When it comes to Lucy's inherent skills, her first grants her Optical Illusion after taking no damage for 8 seconds. If Lucy's hit, she'll immediately recover from the attack and trigger a dodge, removing the stack. Her second marks Overlord or Calamity class monsters hit by any of her resonant skills with Botnet Mark. When the enemy is defeated, Lucy and Rebecca both gain Network Backdoor, which lasts for 2 minutes and can stack up to 2 times. The first stack grants a 10% all damage amplification and hack damage multiplier, while the second stack adds 5% more. This is disabled when Lucy is down. Overall, Lucy is a unit with some of the most specific scalings and teammates in the game, as she benefits from Tomb Break boost and heavy attack damage buffs for her main damage, while only one unit in the game provides that. Rebecca, who comes with a whopping 30 points of Tomb Break boost on her first inherent skill, a 20% attack buff on her second, and an immediate 50% heavy attack damage amp on her outro. With much of the team's damage coming from hack responses via Tomb Breaks, Mornye is a clear support option to increase off-tune build-up rate, but provides much less raw damage buffs than the Shorekeeper, since Mornye's interfered marker, which typically gives 40% damage boosts in these teams, will have no damage buffing effect with hack shifting. When it comes to the overall power level of this team, it definitely competes in the meta, but won't be close to the top spots without some investment into sequence nodes like Mornye's S1 or copies of the Edgerunners units. When it comes to building Lucy, starting off with her skill priority, you'll want to max out her Liberation and her basic attacks first, as they'll be her main source of damage, followed by her resonant skill and forte. Her intro should be kept at level 6 or lower to save on weekly boss mats. Moving on to her weapon, Lucy has plenty of options to work with on the 5-star roster. Here's what the calculations are looking like, credits to Pridewin. Let's start off with her signature, Spectral Trigger. This weapon is made for Lucy, providing a generic crit damage stat line, a 12% attack boost, and up to 40% spectral damage from using resonant skills, alongside 30% heavy attack damage amp and 10% defense ignore if the wielder inflicts hack shifting. Lucy has permanent uptime on this effect, and the damage boosts here are legitimately insane, providing very rare stats like defense ignore and damage amp, not really seen in character kits. Her next best option is with Galbraith's signature, Lux and Umbra. This weapon provides a blend of heavy attack and echo skill buffing, with Lucy's mainly benefiting from its 24% heavy attack damage amp and 8% defense ignore. However, it's hard to maintain consistent uptime on its effects due to its short duration of 6 seconds on echo skill casts. Her third best option, and realistically the only option players should go for beyond her signature, is the standard 5-star pistol, Phasic Homogenizer. This weapon has identical critical stats to her signature and provides a 20% all attribute damage buff when using a Tomb Break. With the massive amount of hack breaks in Lucy's teams, this weapon has near permanent uptime. With Phasic Homogenizer available via the standard selectable weapon banner, there is no need at all for you to explore any other options, so stick with this or go for her signature. Now it's time for Lucy's Echoes, and thankfully she's probably the easiest unit to build in the game. That's because Atom Smasher is the main Echo on the one-piece Shadow of Shattered Dream set that grants 35% heavy and basic attack damage if the wielder inflicts hack shifting, with the actual Echo providing 15% crit rate when in the main slot. This means you'll want 2 separate 2-piece sets granting either Spectro damage, attack, or ER for her other 4 slots. There's virtually no difference in her damage output across any of these blends, so simply choose the Echo sets and substats that'll boost her stats the best and get you to where you want to be. For Echo main stats, you want a crit 4 cost, 2 spectral damage 3 costs, and 2 attack 1 costs. When it comes to substats you'll be looking for, you want crit rate, damage, ER over 120%, attack, and heavy attack damage rolls. Most other damage rolls won't do anything in her kit, so don't go looking for them. The last area of investment when it comes to Lucy involves your wallet or a lot of saved Astrite, sequence notes, and with 3.4's collab pulling event, you'll probably want to know if these are worth the money. Credits to Pridewin for the calcs. Lucy's first node grants her interruption resistance when using her resonant skills or enhanced heavy attacks, and she also gains a 20% attack buff when using her intro skill for 14 seconds. Additionally, when enemies debuffed by her liberation are defeated, Lucy records all of their continuous debuffs and reapplies them to all enemies within 10 meters from the active resonator. Debuffs that inflict direct damage won't be copied. Her starting node increases her starting RAM in her liberation to 32 and also causes her second resonant skill to deal an extra 450% of her attack as heavy attack damage. She also applies all of her continuous debuffs on this attack. Her multi-threading heavy attack also has its motion value buffed by 560% when used with sequel. The third node increases both her liberation's damage multiplier by 50% and her crit damage by 100%. She also gains a 65% damage multiplier on both of her hacks. Her S4 simply grants a 20% damage bonus to the entire team when any team member inflicts hack shifting, while her S5 simply increases the stack limit of optical illusion by 2. She'll also immediately trigger 1 stack when she falls below 50% HP and also gain a shield for 150% of her attack when it's triggered. This provides no damage buffs. And her S6, the big one, causes her hacked enemies to take 40% more heavy attack damage and 60% more total hack damage. This also increases her stagnation on her hack to 1.5 seconds. For big damage boost, the best nodes to stop at will be S2, S3, and S6. Now that we covered Lucy's build, let's get into some of her teams and optimal rotations. Unfortunately, given her reliance on Rebecca and the massive damage buff she provides Lucy, Rebecca will be featured on all of Lucy's teams. However, Rebecca performs fantastically with the standard 5-star static mist, and she's free as well, so this shouldn't be a big deal. Our first team features Mornye as the support, Rebecca as the sub DPS, and Lucy as the main DPS. You'll start off on Lucy, immediately cast her liberation, and select all of the debuffing effects. Then you'll swap to Mornye, attack 3 times, and heavy attack into her hovering state. Then basic attack 3 times, and then go into her skill, and then perform her marking heavy attack, liberation, and then her echo skill before entering onto Rebecca. Rebecca will then perform her 3 basic attacks, skill to switch to Huntress form, and then perform 2 basic attacks, and then her forte heavy, followed by her liberation, and then outro to Lucy. Lucy will intro in, double cast her skill, then perform 3 basic attacks, her enhanced deadlock skill, then 4 enhanced basic attacks followed by dual threading, then multi-threading in the air followed by her enhanced liberation before outroing back to Mornye. This team has a much shorter second rotation, as Mornye will intro in with her hovering mode active, and Rebecca on the second rotation will also be able to skip her 2 basic attacks after switching to her Huntress form, instead immediately using her Forte Heavy into her ultimate following her first stance switch. This team greatly benefits from Mornye's global off-tune build-up rate boost, which provides much more hack uptime, greatly increasing the team's DPS. However, Mornye's 40% damage boost from her interfered marker does not apply unless she's S1 or higher. The second team will feature the exact same teammates while swapping out Mornye for Shorekeeper. The only difference here will be for the support's rotation. After using Lucy's initial unbuffed liberation, you'll swap to SK, who will then basic attack 3 times, resonant skill, basic again, forte heavy attack, and then liberation. You'll then basic attack until another forte attack, if required, to fill up her concerto before swapping to Rebecca. Otherwise, the rotation is virtually identical to the previous listed team. This team, however, focuses more on buffing the raw damage of Rebecca and Lucy while decreasing the overall hack damage, and compared to Mornye at S0, she's virtually identical in performance. Unfortunately, there's pretty much no other options when it comes to Lucy's team building due to her overwhelming reliance on Rebecca, as swapping in sub DPSs like Yuno or Matefi to try to work with Lucy's heavy attack damage causes the overall team's performance to drop to unusable levels. If you don't believe me, feel free to try it out yourself. At the end of the day, Lucy is an above average main DPS that offers an incredibly unique and thematic playstyle to Wuwa that scales very well with her first few sequence nodes, but definitely falls behind some of the most recent releases like Imeth, Hiyuki, and Sagrika when it comes to her overall damage output. However, she's also one of the most affordable DPSs in the game, given that you get her mandatory teammate for completely free, and that teammate performs amazingly on Static Mist. However, Rebecca is also usable in far more situations than Lucy, with the ability to support other lineups that don't feature 2 Edgerunners, a talent that Lucy might never have. Kuro games made Lucy skippable. You aren't losing out on virtually anything meta-wise by not diving into the collab, which definitely helps reduce FOMO, and it's far healthier for the game for limited units that might never come back to not reign at the top of the meta. But who knows, especially knowing that Edgerunner Season 2 is coming out soon. As always, if you enjoyed this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. Peace out.